Gamecocks at night, Gamecocks to fight, Gamecocks to debate about what is wrong and right. We have an hour to talk, so come on, let's go. Let's hear from all the Gamecocks on the Late Night Gamecock Show.
Welcome in to the Late Night Gamecock Show. I am your host, Matt Anderson. Joining me, as always, is Rob Williams of fourquarterfriday.com. Rob, I got a question for you to start out. Right now, my Instagram, my Twitter, my everything, every social media thing is fantasy football. Are you a big NFL fantasy football guy?
Of course, absolutely. Absolutely. Got a couple of drafts coming up here soon. Looking forward to it. I'm in a couple of new leagues this year. So I'm excited to get involved. I'm actually in a league this year. This is really funny. Things have come full circle in my life in a lot of ways, Matt. I'm in a league with some guys and their dads that I have not been in 20 years. But it was the first fantasy football league that I was ever in. My friend's dad set it up for a bunch of us when we were in middle school. I think I was in 6th grade, and I drafted over the phone a landline and wrote down my picks, and they were writing them all down on pads at that point too, because we didn't have smartphones and we didn't have anything. We didn't have an app for it, none of that stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun to get going in that league this year. What about you? Are you you said it's all over social media. How many leagues are you in?
So I'm only in one league that I care about, and it's the same league that I've been in for, 20 years. It's a lot of guys from Florence, a lot of guys that went to Carolina, known for a while. But yeah, so I care about that. Then, every year there's a church group that wants to have a fantasy football league, so I do that. But
I'm one of those too.
right away, we got to get off to the tough part of the news. Pup Sellers, Jaden Sellers, a guy that I've written about a lot on thebigspur.com. He suffered an injury last night, a knee injury. He's out for the year. So I see Will talking about it in here. XO just made it into the chat. It's a big blow, Rob, for South Carolina, because if I have not been the biggest Jaden Sellers fan writing about it, I don't know who could have been. So big blow. This is the kind of thing, and Robin, you and I were going to talk about it later in the show, but with the news just breaking, he got hurt last night. They were hoping that it wouldn't be season ending, but it now appears that it is. So Rob, how big of a blow is Jaden Sellers to this offense?
I think it's pretty big, man. I mean, the wide receiver room is very deep, and so when we talk about depth there, I think that's where we're going to start to see this shine a little bit. But that being said, I think there's two things about Pup Sellers that stand out to me. One is his ability to fit in this Kendall Briles offense. I think it's an offense that is kind of designed for his skill set. I think he had a real opportunity to be wide receiver 2 behind Nick Harbor, and even as a possession guy, potentially lead the team in yards. I know that Harbor is expected to be the leader of that group. We've seen that from a practice standpoint, but statistically as well. But I would expect Sellers, had he not been injured, to kind of step into that second role. The other thing I think, Matt, is that we've talked a lot about Lenora Sellers having a safety valve, and I think that Pup is kind of that guy for him. A couple of years ago, it was Josh Simon, and last year you kind of saw Sellers not really know where or how or who was supposed to dump the ball off to, or kind of know where they are when the heat was on, and it was on often. He was scrambling and running around back there. It would have been very beneficial to dump it off to somebody. I think we saw that start to develop and come back when Jaden Sellers' playing time increased over the end of the season. Obviously, they have a chemistry that you can't manufacture in a college career because they've been playing together for their entire lives. So they know each other, and they know each other inside and out because they're brothers, right? And I think that kind of goes without saying. Sellers kind of mentioned it in an interview. I think it was Marty and McGee, but it may have been SEC Media Days. One of those times where he was asked, "What do you tell mom about making sure Jaden's getting enough touches?" And he basically goes, "I would say to her, if he's open, he'll get the ball, but if he doesn't work open, I'm not going to force it to him." That being said, I do think that there's just a level of comfort dumping that ball off to Pup Sellers that Lenore's felt. And so I think it's a big blow. I think it gives opportunities for guys like, obviously, Mazio Bennett. We're going to get to predictions later. You'll hear my thoughts there. But we've heard a lot about Sequel Patterson, too, and I think that it gives an opportunity for somebody like him to maybe see some more reps.
Yeah, and it's funny enough, like I've been the biggest Jaden Sellers guy on planet Earth, I think, since he broke on the scene against, really, I guess you go back to Oklahoma LSU last year.
Yep.
But I also had an article in the bigspur.com. Feel free to go check it out if you're so inclined, that Mazio Bennett could be the X factor this year. And that goes back to June or July. I don't know if Mazio can do everything that Jaden could, but let's not forget Mazio Bennett was a 4-star wide receiver, did really good things as a freshman, and at the end of the day, it is a deep wide receiver room, and maybe this is his opportunity.
If you are the president of the Jaden Sellers fan club, I'm the president of the Mazio MJ Bennett fan club. I've been all about this kid for a long, long time. I actually lived next door to his wide receivers coach in high school. And so I kind of got the tip on him, but way before he was kind of bursting onto the scene, and followed it all the way through his Tennessee commitment and then the flip to South Carolina and kind of what was all a part of that saga, and have continued to be a guy who has spoken very highly of what Mazio Bennett can do. I think that he has all the opportunity in the world. Again, I'm not going to say a whole lot because I do have it as a part of my predictions for later in the show. And I had that written down pre-Jaden Sellers injury. So I may be changing the number on that prediction before the end of the show and kind of
There you go.
bumping him up a little more.
Yeah, I see some stuff about Jaden Gibson out for the year as well. That's not been confirmed by the staff. I know it's an internet rumor. We'll have to see what happens there. This is obviously not what we started with when we did our show notes and we were preparing today. So it's definitely unfortunate for a lot of reasons. But look, South Carolina had their first scrimmage yesterday, Rob. When I think about scrimmages, the one thing that I always hear is the defense is ahead of the offense. You always hear about certain players flashing, and certainly last night there were certain players flashing. But at the same time, I take this first scrimmage as more of the same way that the Gamecock basketball team was out in the Bahamas, right? Like you want to hear about certain players flashing. But one thing I will also remind everybody is you're not going to hear the bad things about a scrimmage, especially the first scrimmage of the year. I go back, and longtime listeners know this, but last year it was the offensive line can't handle Dylan Stewart. And I said, well, you know what that means? That means Dylan Stewart's going to maybe win the Heisman as a defensive end. But it's always not the case. So what I always like to remind folks is you're going to have the first scrimmage, you're going to have the second scrimmage, and then you're going to have games. Fortunately for South Carolina, you're going to have essentially 4 scrimmages before you have to play a real game against Mississippi State. So read into these scrimmages and look, the bigspur.com, Gamecock Central, Wes, Chris, JC, JB, they've been all over it. So if you want to go read some more in-depth stuff, well, you can go right over there and read it. The one thing I will say though, Rob, is that for the first time in golly, maybe 10 years, Rob, like since I've been talking to people at these scrimmages, hearing things about it, the offense and the defense kind of traded blows. And that's what I wanted to see because look, Tennessee has put some points on Clayton White in his career at South Carolina. And Kendall Browse runs a very similar system. It's something you have to adjust to consistently. And the word that I got out of scrimmages, Rob, or the first scrimmage, was that the offense got the better end of the defense to start things out. Did you hear the same thing?
Yeah, I did. And I think that that's a little different, obviously, than what you would normally get. And I think that it's interesting when you look at this group because all of the questions have been about the offense and quietly some confidence spoken about the defense. I think that this is probably the most intriguing first scrimmage responses that we've gotten in a while, Matt. And I don't think it's a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. I'm not saying that as a way of sparking a cause for concern or anything like that. I just think it's cool to see some flashes from both sides of the ball so early on, and kind of context relaying some positivity on both sides. I guess I should say it that way.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And here are the three things that I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear the offensive line was protecting Lenore Sellers enough to be able to do things, and that clearly happened. Um, then I wanted to hear the offense was at least even with the defense. But for me as a Gamecock analyst, and if you're a Gamecock fan out there, that hasn't been the case. So the offense was making the defense adjust quickly. That's a good thing. When you look at this scrimmage last night, Rob, and look, real quick, I do want to say, so the Jaden Gibson news is now out. DC confirmed it. I haven't been around my computer for a little bit today. Been doing family stuff, church, all that. But yeah, the last I heard, Jaden Gibson was probably going to be out, but it wasn't confirmed. They were going to do some more tests. If DC said it, then he's out. So that's two of the really good wide receivers that you were hoping for South Carolina to have at their disposal this year. But the wide receiver room is deep. But I will go back to what I was saying just a moment ago. I was just checking up with the chat here. But I want this to be, if I was a coach, I want to recreate a game day situation. And that's exactly what the coaches did yesterday, Rob. You had good on good for a little bit of a halftime break, if you will. Like players didn't go to the locker room and, do all that. And there was nothing like that happened. But what did happen was like, okay, now we're going to go into red zone. Now we're going to do situational things. Now we're going to do field goal, special teams, punting, all of that, which kind of gave the coordinators an opportunity to adjust and say, well, let's see what Clayton's going to throw at me in the second half. Let's see what Kendall's going to throw at me in the second half. And you really do recreate a game day setting. So I was happy to hear about that. I mean, the three things I wanted, I feel like they all got check marks out of the first scrimmage, Rob.
Yeah, and that would be your last one. Is probably one of the first things on my mind is how quickly are these coordinators able to adjust in game. That is so critical when we get into the season, Matt, and especially in some of these SEC matchups with a 9-game SEC schedule this year. You can't really afford to wait until halftime to make major adjustments in the course of the game, and that's something that I've seen Clayton White grow in over the course of his career at South Carolina, and something that we know Kendall Briles has spoken extensively about when it comes to making adjustments on the fly and getting things fixed quickly. And so that was something that I was really looking into here is if you come up against a matchup that's not working or where the other side of the ball is getting the better of you, how quickly are you making those adjustments? That is something that we'll be watching throughout the early part of the season as well. Although, Matt, I don't know how much they'll be tested in those first couple of games to make those adjustments. So we'll really be watching for that once we get into the SEC schedule with Mississippi State. The other thing, obviously, that I'm looking for in these scrimmages, and I said it last week when we were looking at practice notes, I've said it on Four Quarter Friday about every preseason jamboree, scrimmage, everything for teams around the year, around the state. I look for this for everybody is health. We just gave the report, okay? Obviously, it's a big blow to lose a couple of receivers, especially one in Jaden Sellers, who has shown so much potential and was going to be a factor in this offense. However, I'll flip to the other side of the coin and say not having anybody else bruised, banged up at this point significantly, I think is a good thing, Matt. And also some of those offseason injuries seem to be still quote unquote on track.
And I agree with you. And I see Big Roosters commenting here after last year. The first scrimmage, they were saying how awesome the offense was. And Big Rooster, this goes back to what I kind of said earlier, and I should have listened more in last year's preseason scrimmages. They were basically putting Dylan Stewart on the sideline, and that's when the offense looked good. So you got to take all this with a giant grain of salt. Like you'll see the actual finished product on the field against Kent State, Towson, Mississippi State, and then you go into the schedule. But I did want to acknowledge that and just say that it's a tough thing because in scrimmages you're trying to see who flashes. And I go back to men's basketball. That's what I'm looking for right now. You talk about health. It's pretty tough, man, because I I knew that Jaden got hurt last night. I didn't know how bad it was, but even
Right.
before that, I put some notes together around injuries and how you want to come out of these scrimmages injury free. And I saw somebody else say in here, where was it? Cam said, that's why I've never been a really big fan of scrimmages. It's football, y'all. Football injuries happen,
It's
and
got to
you
happen.
you can't put bubble wrap on somebody and expect them to be healthy the entire rest of the year. What you have to hope though is that injuries are not the story of this season, right, Rob? Looking around the rest of the SEC, Tennessee has a starting safety, Farouk, who's out for the year with a torn patellar tendon. Linebacker Jaden Harmon, a transfer from Miami, is also out for this season with an upper body injury. We already talked about Chaz Coleman. The Gamecock fans know he's medically disqualified. Georgia, I'm just talking about teams on the schedule. Georgia has a handful of guys now dealing with injuries. Auburn transfer defensive end, offensive linebacker Aramis Williams tore his ACL. Running back Dante Dowdle, we all know, had an ATV incident. Even their preseason All American center Drew Bobo is still nursing or recovering, however you want to say it, from a foot lav shrink issue from last season. Those things can linger. Alabama had a running back have an ankle injury in a scrimmage. Don't know when he's coming back, but he's being out at least 6 weeks. Running back EJ Crowell and wide receiver, God, how do I say this? Latsier Brooks.
You got it.
Latsier Brooks. They've missed some time in practice. I mean, Gamecocks have it too. We've talked about Dylan Stewart, talked about Jakaris Peak, but what you have to hope for is just as healthy as you can be going to the season. Florida, Oklahoma, and A&M, other teams on the schedule, all have lingering issues. So everybody's banged up right now. It's football.
Yeah, and Matt, I think that you have a couple of games to start the season too, and you can look at one side or the other, right? Like you have a couple of games against Kent State and Towson that may give you an opportunity to quote unquote get healthy or healthier if you get banged up a little bit in camp. But also you want to get guys reps and opportunities early in both of those games. And when I say get guys reps, I mean everybody. You want your starters to get kind of lathered up and get some good reps under their belt so they can get the feel of playing real football again. But you also want to build depth in those games if possible. And so I think that it's you can look at both sides of the coin with those first two games because you don't want to have starters coming in and the first thing they do is play against Mississippi State, who we all know is kind of one of those sneaky teams that you can't look past.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I'm still laughing here at EXO. EXO said maybe football players should all start wearing bubble wrap would be a new look. I mean, I'm
The
not
Guardian
against it,
the
but
Guardian caps look like bubble wrap, and they are becoming more and more. I don't know if popular is the word, but utilized. I guess I
yeah.
should say. I've seen them across levels. You kind of get an option in the NFL and in college, but I've seen a lot of these high school teams, Matt, especially in the scrimmage and jamboree weeks, where every single player on the team is wearing a Guardian cap.
Well, I have no idea if the Guardian cap is effective or not. I do have a friend that is a doctor that said that the Guardian cap actually does nothing for anybody. And they're still doing tests, but it's a violent sport, y'all. That is what it is. Like, I don't know, like if braces would help if every player wore braces, but you limit mobility, so who knows? But Rob, this actually ties perfectly into our next segment for the show. We're going to go through each position group, offense, defense, special teams, and we're going to give our worry meter after one scrimmage. So we're going to do a 1 through 5. 1 means not worried at all. 5 means very concerned. 3 means somewhat concerned. So we'll go through it and you can fill in 2 and 4, however you want to do it. But let's start with quarterback, Rob. Like based on what you're hearing after the end of the first scrimmage, 1 to 5, how are you feeling about the quarterback? 1 being not worried, 5 being considerably worried.
I'm going with a 1 here because we know what we're getting from Lenore Sellers, and we're also hearing good things about Cutter Woods. So I think that overall, I would say that I'm pleased with that position. Like, is there anybody in the country that has more potential than Lenore Sellers? As long as he grasps this offense and makes quick decisions and takes care of the football, I know that's saying a lot of what ifs, but we've seen him be able to do those things before. It is a new offense. He's got to kind of get comfortable with it, but we're getting kind of information that seems to lead to the idea that he is. So I'm going to 1. I think that one's just fine for me.
I'm in the same boat. I'm a 1 right now based on what I heard from the scrimmage last night that Lenoris is making quick decisions. He's in lockstep with Kendall Briles. He was able to go short, intermediate, and deep in the scrimmage last night and make noise. So that's a 1
And
for
look,
running back, Rob.
I,
Go ahead.
I'll say this one thing before we move on. I think too that Lenore Sellers is on a mission. Matt, I think that he means business this year. I think that he's very unhappy with how things turned out last year. He was a part of the process of putting this roster together. He was a part of the process of bringing Kendall Briles in. He has real ownership over this offense and what it's going to look like and how it's going to execute. And I think that there's a chip on his shoulder because how last year turned out reflects on him as well. And there's a lot of opinions floating out there about his ability as a quarterback. And I think that he's really on a mission to do as his head coach does and put people on blast with those receipts when he goes out and executes.
And well, the last thing I'll say on that too, and quarterbacks is a position you have to spend a little bit of time on, but especially with Jaden being out, I think that's probably extra motivation for Lenoris to show that not show to anybody else, but just give Jaden a good season while he's not able to play. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the same way for both of us. A 1 running back, Rob. I'll go ahead and start, man. I think it's a 2 for me, which is kind of crazy. Um, I think that you have Matt Fuller, you have Christian Clark. I think both of them are very, very capable running backs, better than the Gamecocks have had probably in the last 2 years. And then I look at that competition between 3 and 4, and everything I hear is that the coaching staff would put any of those 4 onto the field in a given situation. So I'll go at 2 just because we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's funny enough. I actually have a 2 there as well because of the returns that I've heard all the way starting back in the spring about Matt Fuller and then about the rest of these backs. I think that Matt, the offensive line being tooled in a little different way this year plays into how I view this running back room as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we look at the skill sets that the running backs have and their ability to execute, I think that the offensive scheme and the guys they brought in the offensive line play a big role in how productive the running backs are going to be. I think you have guys who have speed, have the ability to cut quickly, guys who can catch it out of the backfield. We've seen the home run ability of Matt Fuller. I'm going to get to some of those other guys here in just a little bit during our prediction segment. But like you said, we've heard good things about Christian Clark as well. I think that the running backs are going to surprise a few people. They are unproven, so they got to go out there and show it.
I agree with you. I mean, I have a 2. What did you say, Rob? What was your final one?
Yeah, it's a 2.
Okay. So at tight end, this is one that, I'll be honest, Rob, I haven't heard much since the spring. It's not something I can say this tight end is clearly ahead of the pack. But what I do think is that the tight ends are going to be involved, but it's also going to be who's the best pass blocker, and we'll see what happens there. But um, Mike Taylor, Mo Brown, Brady Hunt, they're all capable. I give it a 2 as well. I don't know how much of a difference maker tight end is going to be this season, but it could be a touchdown or 2, maybe 5 touchdowns for the entire group over the season.
Okay, I have a 3 here, and here's what I'll tell you why. I talked to a contact probably 3 weeks ago who said that they think that the tight end position is going to play a significant role in this offense. And it was interesting to get that feedback, but I was told that they're going to throw to the tight end a decent amount, and I was told that Brady Hunt and Mike Tyler are kind of the top 2 guys that you're looking at here. And so with Brady, I think that he got some bad breaks last year. There was kind of some bad luck. We continue to hear about his hands. We continue to hear about Mike Tyler's hands and his ability and his athleticism. I'm interested to see how does he step into that role and become a true playmaker. I think that we kind of know what Brady Hunt can do. It's just how many opportunities is he going to get? Like I said, I was told they're going to get more opportunities than maybe we originally thought. So I'm excited to see how that position evolves and works here. We obviously trust Sean Elliott to get them ready and develop them. But because we haven't heard a ton, that's why I kind of bumped it up to a 3.
I'm in the same boat. One of the things that Brady Hunt for a long time was that he it was explained to me he always falls forward. He has
Yep.
really good hands and he always falls forward. And so that's a very important thing when you think about that safety valve that might not be there with Jaden Sellers. You're not able to play this year. I mean, I think Mazio, and you said it earlier, has a bright future at South Carolina. I think it's been a tough wide receiver room to crack. I think he's had difficulty with previous offensive play callers, and really just one of them, because there was really nothing in the intermediate game that actually suited Mazio Bennett well. So maybe these tight ends are able to do it. So I have a 2, you have a 3. Offensive line is the one that everybody wants to talk about, Rob. I'll start here. I'm at a 3, and I thought before I did this segment, like 2 weeks ago, I would have been a 5, or 3 weeks ago, I would have been a 5. It's offensive line is still a position that I think you have to show me before I believe it. But everything I heard out of the scrimmage, everything I've heard about fall camp, everything I've heard about the offseason, watching Clem work with these guys, watching Jason work with these guys, it seems to be a situation where they identified the players they wanted. They know what they're good at. They know what they're not good at, and they're going to scheme around it.
Yeah, I'm at a 3 here as well. I think that the scheme dictates a lot more of what I think here. Again, this is a group just like the tight ends where I say they've got a lot of experience, but they don't have a lot of SEC experience necessarily. A couple of guys like Shed Surratt, obviously that was here. Jacarius Peak gets back to full health. He has major Power 4 experience. I think he'll be just fine. You have some guys that came in from various levels. But to your point, Matt, I think that they kind of targeted who fits what they want to do. I'll go back to Lenore Sellers again, who said in a public interview with Marty and McGee on the SEC Network that he was watching film and that he was calling coaches on the staff and saying, look at this guy. He was looking at guys who were in the portal and helping pick them out. So when I talk about his ownership of this group, this offense as a whole, I think it melts into the offensive line as well. And I'm excited to see how those guys gel together. That's the big question for me, Matt. I think they did go get guys who fit the scheme, and I think the scheme is going to alleviate some of the pressure that's been on that position group in the past few years. However, how quickly can these guys who have not played real football, they've practiced, they've hit each other, they've done the scrimmages, when they get there and it's in Williams-Brice and there's 75,000 strong or 80 or whatever it's going to hold for the next few years, how do they work together like 5 fingers in one fist? That's what I want to see from those guys, and that's kind of why I left it at a 3.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've really embraced, and I talked to John Strickland about this on Friday, if you guys missed it, but Ross Tucker is an NFL offensive line guru. He played the position in the NFL. He went to Harvard. He's a very smart guy, calls games on Sundays. He actually said in a fantasy football podcast, taking this back to the start of the show, that he'd rather have 5 average offensive linemen than 2 elite and 3 below average.
Yep.
And I think that that's one of the things that the Gamecocks have lacked for a while. They might have had 2 guys that are great. We can go back to Shed Surratt last year. He had amazing pass blocking statistics and grades, but run blocking was terrible. Well, guess what? If one person misses a blitz and you got to go pick it up, and then it still results in a negative rush or a quarterback sack, you're going to get blamed just as much as the other guy is. So I think with this offensive line, it's kind of like a red-headed, ugly stepchild situation, but there's still talent there. So that's why I give it a 3. Defensive end, Rob, obviously the big thing is Dylan Stewart. I just posted on the Big Spur about maybe an hour ago that if you're worried about Dylan Stewart and you're saying like he's not going to play, I don't think that's the situation. It doesn't help him, and it doesn't help South Carolina to sit out the entire year. Now, if we get to week 3 against Mississippi State and he's not playing, I would go ahead and say, well, let's wait till after the bye week. So for defensive end right now, it's Caleb Herring, it's Julian Walker, it's 6 other guys that could play, but they're not Dylan Stewart. So for me, defensive end right now is a 4. And if I knew for an absolute fact that Dylan Stewart was going to play week 3, it'd be a 1. Does that make sense to you, Rob?
Makes perfect sense. I think that he's a major factor. And when you talk about those other guys not being Dylan Stewart, there's not a whole lot of guys that you can name across the country, or if you want to even go back in South Carolina's history the past few years, that you can say really are a decent sort of kind of comp to Dylan Stewart. The things that he can do are just freaky. And I think the NFL draft is going to reflect that next year, regardless of what he's able to do this year. I think the injury will be an opportunity for him to still go high in the draft if it lingers and they can get it cleared up before next year. All that being said, Matt, I think that he's going to be able to be productive based on what I know right now today. I have that position at a 2 because I think that Caleb Herring continues to grow and advance. I think that that obviously you had a coaching change at that position with Sterling Lucas going to LSU, but I think that Deion Barnes is proven, and he's young and he's hungry, and he's getting that group ready to go. I think the development of a guy like Julian Walker, I think that there's not many freshman bodies that look like that. I think that he comes in and is able to provide some quality there. And at the end of the day, Matt, we talk about offensive line needing maybe just 5 pretty good offensive linemen and not necessarily any elite ones. What about this defensive end position? If they have to rotate guys quickly in and out and just get, 15 snaps here and 20 snaps there, and nobody's really shouldering the load at that position, that can work given the depth they have inside. I think they can get a decent push around across that defensive front. Setting the edge is the big question for me. How do they stop the run? Because that's more important than I think getting to
outside
the pass.
zone, all of that, Rob. You're right. You're all over it. And look, I have nothing. I have no information that I could actually say where I don't think Dylan Stewart will be back around week 3. I'm not going to put week 3 locked in, because it's a back, y'all. There's setbacks, but the plan right now is for him to play as soon as he's ready to play, and Mississippi State has been circled for that. But going back to defensive tackle, which you just mentioned, Rob, I have a 1 at defensive tackle. I think the defensive tackle group is really, really good. I think there's 6 to 8 guys that are SEC level, and 4 of those guys might be starter SEC level. So when you think about what you want to do and who you're going to play against too, I mean, like how often are the offenses the Gamecocks are going to play be, going quick, going fast? There's going to be some, but there's not enough where I don't think the defensive tackles will be ready to go each and every snap. So I got a 1 there.
Yeah, I have a 2 there, and this is where I'll push back is on some of these quick offenses is what gives me a little bit of pause, because and only because I think that some of those quick offenses are in pivotal situations. Tennessee being one where I think South Carolina is going to need to win that game in order to accomplish what it wants to accomplish this year. It's at home. History shows that the Gamecocks should win in that series because that's how it's gone for the past 15 to 20 years. The home team wins, but haven't seen Tennessee in a few years. I think they're coming in with a lot of question marks. I'm going to get to them in our prediction segment here in just a little bit. But I think that I think that you're right about the depth. I think that those guys are going to be the anchor that sets the tone for this defense. I think that a lot of the leadership that is needed on this team can definitely come out of that group. Mm-hmm. And I think that bodes well for this Gamecocks defense over the course of the season. If I have to put any concern on it, Matt, it comes in some of those quick tempo offense situations, because I think that although they may not be every team they play, I do think that there's a couple of teams that have opportunities or tendencies to go fast in pivotal situations for the Gamecocks. Can they have some guys step up out of that group that are going to be in shape enough to not get gassed and take on an entire drive, just the 2 of them, without getting to sub out?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Rob, and I don't think you and I have ever really discussed this, but I'm a big fan of in college football head coaches using timeouts like they use them in college basketball.
Yeah, stop a run.
I think if you need to stop a run, you need to sub somebody out, you call a timeout, because The second half is where you need to make sure you manage your timeouts because end of game situations. But in the first half, I wish more coaches would actually say, my defense is gassed. My offense is not here right now. Let's call a timeout. Let's make the team regroup. I'll never forget in high school, we were playing against Conway, Rob. So going back to 4-quarter Fridays, South Lawrence versus Conway basketball. My team got up, South Lawrence got up to a 22-2 lead in the first 4 minutes of the first quarter. And that Conway coach called a timeout and made his team run sprints the entire timeout. Then after that, he extended it to a full and he said, are you guys locked in? Are you ready to play? Or do I need to call another timeout and go run some more sprints? And needless to say, we lost that game by 20 points because as soon as like that team was just sprinting, we were staring, not listening to our coach at all, and it was over from that point. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I can see that, and we got Justin in here. Justin, why don't you come on in and finish this conversation with us? We're definitely going to go long today, but hey, Justin, so we're going through our worry meter for each position group. So feel free to pop in with this. We're going to go to a sponsor break afterwards, but we're through defensive tackle. So Justin, how about you lead off? 1 means you feel great. 5 means you're kind of worried. Linebacker core for South Carolina.
I put it at a 3, right in the middle. I mean, I think they showed good signs. Yeah, I think 3 could be really explosive, but I mean, I think it's really the challenge when it comes to what you're looking at overall for our defense.
Go ahead, Rob.
I've got it at a 2. I think that these guys are continuing to mature, Matt, and you have 3. You only have to play 2 in the scheme at a time. And I really like when Clayton White switches it up from time to time and goes 3-3-5. I think that there's a lot that can be done with that, with the depth on the defensive line and maybe some questions about defensive end. I think they could maybe situationally plug that in some this year as well, especially if you continue to have the injury from Dylan Stewart kind of linger into the season. But at the linebacker spot, if I'm not counting out Donovan Darden coming in there and being that 4th guy, and then you kind of have a rotation where you have a true 2 deep that can get in there and do it. And I think that really protects you in this offense. The athleticism, the speed is definitely there. The mental side of things, I think, was really what needed to clean up in terms of false steps and just kind of making quick reads. And in another year older and more mature, I think that we're going to see that, Matt.
So I'm also a 3 with linebacker. I've written about it. I've talked about it. I look, they did not grade well last year, and I'm a big proponent of extra snaps, extra gameplay, being in the system an extra year. But last year they didn't play well. They are, and this is going to be very controversial, y'all. And I know that I'm stepping against the grain, but I need to see more out of all of them, especially the key 3 guys that are going to play and how they diagnose things, how they react, how they play in conflict until I feel confident. So linebacker is going to be a 3 for me. Let's go over to cornerback. I'll start out. I think Vicari Swain has an opportunity to be a lockdown corner, like the next great South Carolina defensive back. Judge Collier was battling an injury last year. 2 years ago, he performed pretty well in limited snaps, and I think that this is a 2 or a 3 for me because I do get kind of worried about the depth, and I wonder if Judge can hold on to that job the entire season. So I'll be like a 2.5. Rob, let's start with you.
I got it at a 2 as well. I think those top 2 guys are really, really good. We mentioned Vicari Swain. I think that, it's been well noted over the course of the offseason, Matt, Justin, that he has first round potential if he performs well as a lockdown corner this year. You already know what he does as a returner, special talent with the ball in his hands. I think Judge Collier is probably coming back with a vengeance. Just, the way that we saw him coming into last year, he's a big corner too, guys. He's really the type of guy that Torian Gray likes. And then you got one of those sleepers behind them, and there's a little bit of depth there. The one that I love is Tristan Lewis because it's another athletic high school quarterback that Torian Gray loved at camp, and here he comes. And all the returns that I've gotten through the offseason are just rave reviews about Tristan Lewis. talked to his head coach, Chris Liner at Greenwood, who talked about his work ethic, his strength, his athleticism, his ability. And this is a guy at Greenwood who's been there for 3 decades, coached some good ones, to include DJ Swearinger, and has seen some South Carolina success. I think that he can make those comparisons pretty well. The intelligence of a guy like Tristan Lewis, I think, sticks out as well, and just his ability to love the game and grow from an understanding standpoint is important for a freshman. So I think the depth is maybe a little better than what we can see. Unproven. That's kind of the theme of some of our questions here tonight, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I have it at a 2. But I trust Torian Gray more than anything.
Yeah,
Justin, your thoughts?
yeah. Rob took the words right out of my mouth. Torian Gray here with his leadership, leading this group. I think another year is what really is going to – you're talking about that with the linebackers. I think another year is really key here. I think they got a chance to be very special, and I think Clayton's going to let these guys play very aggressive, I think. And I'm sure there's going to be, a few plays here and there that we're going to kind of want to beat our heads against the wall, but let's just hope that I don't like to use that word hope, but let's hope that doesn't come at a critical part of the games that, if during those one-score games – that it has an effect on. But at the end, I think it's a 2.
Well, now I will also say too, there is a battle right now between Gerald Kilgore and Quayshad Scott, and that is one of the things that I heard in the scrimmage last night. That is still a battle, and Quayshad also had experience in Kentucky. Was a guy that the defense wanted, Clayton White, Torian Gray, but Gerald Kilgore is just not going away. So. Looking over at safety, man, for me it might be it's a 3, but like I'm gonna go and stand on a big mountain right now and say I believe in Peyton Williams, and then David Busey, and then Xavier Currents. How that works out, I think there's a higher upside with Currents, but at the same time you can't make mistakes. And if you throw Currents out there and the plays that Justin was just talking about, like pull your hair out. How did that happen? Maybe Busey does not make those mistakes. So I'll give it a 3, but I think at the end of the year, I could be a 1 and not worried at all about this safety core.
I'm actually going to go with a 1 now for that
Okay.
reason. I think that you have Torian Gray in there again. I love Peyton Williams. I think that he showed the ability early in his career. He then had some limited opportunities, but I think this is his moment. He's old, guys. Like, he's been around for a long time, and that has typically worked out really well at the safety position in this Shane Beamer regime. So I think that he's going to have a big season. David Busey has gotten a lot of positive comments coming out of preseason camp, coming out of the off season. So I think there's a lot of reason to be confident there. They don't just talk about these guys. Matt, you mentioned before that we're not going to hear negative stuff, but when you continue to hear guys' names as a positive, I think it does stand out, especially from people like from Torian Gray secondary. And we've seen Xavier Currents. We know what he can do. I continue to see him as I cover South Point. He's typically there, and opportunities to once again go, oh my gosh, this dude is massive. Yeah. And then to see how he moves, everybody who is close to him has echoed and screamed to me his love for the game and how it is how it consumes his life. How all he does is eat, sleep, and breathe football. And I think that type of football junkie combined with his athleticism and instincts and ability on the football field, he's going to be a factor. And don't forget about Kendall Daniels Jr. back there too. I think that you have some depth at this position for sure. And no matter how it shakes out, I have confidence in the safety position.
Yeah, I think it's a 2. Is under the same umbrella, from a defensive back perspective overall, playing in the secondary. I think what's key is how are these, safeties and defensive backs going to integrate? A lot of times lately in the last couple of years has been injury-prone stuff, so they've had to kind of make some adjustments on the fly. I think that's key. I think when you've got overall talented folks, you're able to really make those changes pretty easily. So let's hope that there's not a long laundry list of injuries that they're having to deal with. But again, I think it's a 2 overall.
And that's the key to all this. We're going to get special teams here now, but just keep everybody healthy. We're going to come back to this and maybe some opportunities for other wide receivers after we finish special teams due to the injuries of Jaden Gibson and Jaden Sellers. Maybe don't have the name Jaden. I don't know. Like if I have another kid, probably not naming him Jaden if this is going to happen. But Rob, let's start with you. Let's talk about punter. Thoughts here?
I feel okay about punter, because we have some history to go on. I think a little bit here. When you I know you're going to talk about kicker in a minute. I would feel a little different. I'm going to put punter at 2, just because special teams as a whole is sort of a question mark for me with Matthew Smiley coming in. How aggressive are they going to be? I think that the fan base is still kind of Pete Limbo spoiled from, what was it, 2022, when there was 17 fakes and every one of them scored a touchdown and they were like an extra offense out there. And so I think, I'm always, when I'm looking at punter in a Shane Beamer led team, I want to know about their arm strength, their accuracy, how well can they layer it over the second level of the defense and drop it in there. So, from a pure kicking the ball standpoint, I feel okay, but we know that it's never that simple with a Shane Beamer special teams. I want to see what Matthew Smiley's got up his sleeve here. And that's where punter kind of comes into play for me, because there's a little more mentally involved than punting, kicking, all the things in a normal special teams unit.
Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have anything else to really add to that. I mean, it's very critical, and the key is, can you flip the field, and time will tell. I think it's just one of those things. You got to get your feet wet, and then let's see what happens.
I can tell you that every SEC punter is going to average 40 yards per punt. So, like, if you're worried about that, that's one thing. I wouldn't be worried about it personally. I'm going to put it at a 2 for that reason, but also, and here's something I talked about months ago, and I think it bears being repeated, is that Matthew Smiley has been in the NFL, and guess what the NFL does? They look at those, very, very small opportunities to gain a yard. Everything in the NFL is 4th and 4. Are we going to punt? Or are we going to go for it? 4th and 4. Are we going to kick? Or are we going to go for it? And the NFL, and this is a quote that I've used for a long time, like, the best player to get cut from an NFL team is the best player that ever came out of your home city. Like the guy that everyone in the barbershop talks about, everybody at the diner talks about. That guy got cut. So in college football, you can find opportunities, and I think Shane Beamer learned from his dad from that, and now Shane Beamer's continued it. So if there is an opportunity, to Rob's point, to layer it over the second level of the defense, to run. I mean, I want to see what these guys can do, and I feel very strongly that you're going to see more of the Pete Limbo special teams than you saw previously. And I think a lot of that is going to be Shane Beamer and Smiley deciding how we're going to do it. So just an interesting layer. No one thought we were going to talk about punter for 5 minutes, but it's very important in a South Carolina offense.
Wait till you hear my thoughts on the holder in a minute, Matt.
Oh, long snapper too. I mean, Adam Wade played at South Florence. Rick Stockstill at Middle Tennessee State gave him a full scholarship because he was the best long snapper in the country. And that he had walk-on offers everywhere, but he went to Middle Tennessee State to be a long snapper. It's important. So we'll talk about kicker now. I'll start, and then I'll go to Rob, then I'll go to Justin. This is a 5 for me because it's not even – we have no idea who the kicker is going to be. South Carolina needs to find somebody that can make from 40 to 49, 50 plus. The hope is the Gamecocks never attempt one of those field goal attempts this year, but it's going to happen. It's probably going to happen in a pressure-packed moment. So, Rob, I'm a 5. Where are you?
I'm a 5 too. And this is it's a little. I don't want to sound the alarms, but there's a little bit of a red flag here for me because of just the inability to find somebody. I feel like we're late in the process. That question keeps getting asked. Well, when do you want to know who the guy is? And I think
they grabbed a guy like a week before fall practice.
Yeah, and didn't somebody, I think on one of the shows this week, I don't remember who it was with, maybe somebody with Jamie, said 3 days ahead of time, because the guy kind of needs to know 3 days out that, hey, you're going to be the one out there kicking, yada, yada. I don't know. I don't want to throw stones or anything, but kickers are a different type of dude. Like, they kind of are in their heads a little bit. They're kind of like
golfers. They could be
Yeah,
gifts.
they're a lot like golfers. They can kind of be like pitchers, like relief pitchers that come in. You need to just get or closers who are coming in to just get a couple of outs, and you don't talk to them. You kind of let them get in their own zone. They got to do their thing. They got to get juiced and block out everything around you. I don't know. I think that this one, the fact that we don't have a definite answer here yet, Matt, I do think that stealing points is big for this team that might get into some tight contests, and you're going to need to come away with that
I think
3 in that
Rob,
40 to 49 range.
I don't mean to cut you off, but anytime you can steal points, steal them. Like absolutely steal the F out of them. Grab all the points.
Justin?
Is there a worse feeling if you're watching a game and you know a kicker is going to put a banana hook on the ball or something, you know? Like, is there like a worse feeling watching a game as a fan? Like, that's what we don't want, right? So it's like, and the thing is, like, you talk about timing and everything. It's the snap, it's the hold, like, and you're really kicking a moving ball. It's not, it's there, it's placed right there for you, but at the end of the day, it's all got to be in sync. So I'm very nervous. I'm a 5 as well. So I will sound the alarm for us. How about that?
3 5s.
Yeah. I'm right there with you guys. So kick returner, punt returner, let's do these combined. I did see some stuff in the chat earlier today. So first off, I'll say I have a 1 on punt and kick returner. I think the Gamecocks have enough bodies there. But I'll throw it back to you, Rob, and to you, Justin. Do you think Vicari Swain needs to be returning punts this year?
Yes.
I think you got to put. Yeah, I agree with Rob. I mean, you got to put your most athletic people back there. Your superstars. Why not?
That's
Nick Harbor.
Points, right, Rob?
Nick Harbor is the gunner because he's an athlete. If we're gonna go back to bubble wrapping, and I know it's a tough subject right now with the injury to the Jadens, but you got to put your best players in the best positions, in my opinion. And if that means that you're putting your wide receiver 1 out there to go mow somebody down when you're punting, and you're putting your best defensive back, your most athletic, explosive guy with the ball in his hands back there to catch punts and take off, it's more than just his athleticism. There's vision there. There's confidence there because he's done it. I think you have to put him back there.
So, Justin, your thoughts? Kick returner and punt returner.
1. I think 1. I think we're pretty set there. Let's not have any turnovers.
Yeah, no muff punts, nothing crazy, right? Special teams in general, like I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head. Let's call it a 4. I probably bet everyone will agree with that. Until we figure out place kicker, it has to be a minimum of 4, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Justin.
Oh yeah.
All right, well, let's take a quick break. I know we've gone a bit long, but we need to have a little sponsor break. We'll come back and we're going to give some team predictions.
Gamecock Traditions, your Nike and tailgate superstore. Visit GamecockTraditions.com and go see our friends in Columbia.
Never assume self-defense. Visit protectwithbear.com.
Looking for thrills? Then welcome to the South Carolina Education Lottery, where every chance at a win comes with a chance of a whiff.
Wait, what? What does she have to be so happy about?
Well, quite a bit, Jeff. That face right there, that's a face that says fun. But when the game stops being fun and that face goes away, it might be time to take a break.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks. Mystery voice?
No problem, Jeff. Playing for fun makes you a better player, and a better player is a better you.
Don't wait on your home's safety. Take the simple steps today. Visit RestoPros Midlands SC.com. There when you need us.
Dry Space Crawl Space Solutions are your local home protection experts. Crawl space encapsulation, sump pump and drain installs, humidity control, duct cleaning, basement waterproofing, concrete leveling, and French drains. We do it all. Visit DrySpaceCS.com. DrySpaceCS.com. Go Gamecocks.
Old floors made new. RecoatRevolution.com.
Visit fourquarterfriday.com.
Welcome back into the Late Night Gamecock Show. I am joined by Rob Williams of Four Quarter Friday and Justin Lyles of SportsCapValue.com. Justin, remind everyone where they can find you, how they can take part in everything that you're giving free money on right now.
Yes, thank you. SportsCapValue.com is where you can find us. I just uploaded this past Thursday, 3 days ago, our season totals in college football and Heisman predictions for that as well. Heisman futures, I should say. So you can go log in our website. It's still $9.99 a month. And, we'll be adding more stuff on futures with college football, and we've started making our way into the NFL predictions as well. So what's up?
It is a very fun time to get excited about things. And, you put a $5 bet in, who cares? Hold it for a little bit. Justin's going to probably help you win some money. So now we're going to get into predictions. I don't know how many we're going to get to tonight. We're going to do everything we can. But I'll start out here. This is predictions about an individual player, a defensive unit, an offensive unit, a team projection. So I'll go ahead and start here. And I think, and I'm gonna come out hot, so I want to get y'all's takes on this. But I think at least 3 true freshmen will be starting the game against Clemson to end the regular season.
I agree, actually. I think there's a good number of them that are going to be significant contributors. I have a true freshman prediction later in this as well, but I just talked about Jazavian Currents, and then you got a couple of guys along the defensive front. We know about this receiver core now with Jaden Sellers going down specifically. You're going to have some opportunities for younger guys, whether they're redshirt freshmen or true freshmen, to step in there. And I think there's a chance to get 3. But Clemson's a long way away, man. We got a lot of football to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think 3 is probably, it's probably a small number considering both sides of the ball in a physical sport. You're talking 12, 13 weeks into the season. Yeah, I don't think it's anything wild there.
So, Justin, my take for you, like taking this to a betting angle, if you knew that 3 Gamecocks were freshmen starting against Clemson, how does that change things for you, if at all? We can take a couple different ways here. Like they've started in week 3, or now like they're filling in after week 11. How does that change things for you from a betting perspective?
I don't think it really does. It's just a small piece of the pie. I mean, it really depends on, are they really good, or is it because of injuries? Is it a combination of both? Are they in a spot where maybe they do start, but they're not playing a whole lot? I mean, they're not getting a lot of reps. There's really a whole lot of moving factors there in the grand scheme of really kind of predict a score between 2 teams.
All right, Rob, what do you have next for us? One second, I gotta take my dog's collar off. He's just rattling.
I'll go number 1. My first one here is Lenore Sellers' rushing stat. I'm going to go Lenore Sellers hits the 700-yard mark on the ground. And here's why. Here's your stats. Under Kendall Briles, 2 other significant rushers at the quarterback position, De'Aaron King and KJ Jefferson. Okay? Neither one of them is the runner or has the ability that Lenore Sellers has to be explosive in both facets. De'Aaron King in 2018 ran for 674 1 year under Kendall Briles. KJ 2 years under Briles, 640 1 year, 664 another year. Okay? I know we've talked a lot about the running back position and what they're going to be able to do. I think that the reads for Sellers are going to be 1-2 run.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to get some design quarterback run in there, and he's going to take off and go. If he keeps getting loose and taking off, I think that, he was over 600 a couple of years ago. We're not stretching it a ton to say, well, he's going to get an extra 40 yards this year.
Justin, thoughts on that? 750 or 700 or 750?
I said 700.
700. I won't
I
put
won't
words
push
in your mouth.
750.
No, I like it. No, I think that's a good point. 700 is a good number to shoot for, especially in this system. What we know with Kendall Browse, the key is can he stay healthy, right? That's the question, right? We're talking year 3, and there's been injuries in both seasons. So can he stay healthy to really achieve that number for me?
Here's the thing that I would say as well on that. This is assuming there's a bowl game as well. So if he averages 60 yards, then he's at 780. If he averages 55 yards, he's at 715. If he averages 50 yards a game, he's just under at 650. So somewhere in that 50 to 55 yards rushing per game, can he hit that number? I think it's possible.
I think it comes down to how many 40-plus yard rushes does he have?
Yeah.
Like, if he can have 3 in a season, you're at, Justin, you're the engineer, but I think that's 120. So you get, maybe a fifth or sixth of those rushing yards over 3 attempts. So I'm not far off there, and I'll add one more. I said 500 yards in my prediction, but I like your 7, and I'll say that Lenore's also passes for over 3,000 yards. The amount of attempts that he's going to have this year compared to what he's had in the past at 8.2 yards per attempt. If you just say he's going to throw 32 times a game, considering that Kendall Browse runs about 70 plays a game, and you're only looking at 250 yards passing per game to get over 3,000. So 3,000 is kind of one of that mythical numbers that you want, the elite quarterbacks to hit. I say Lenore's does. Justin, what do you say?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, what I'm more concerned about is I think there's going to be a lot of focus on Sellers rushing the ball, and I think that allows for Carolina to have a breakout star at the running back position, not named Lenore Sellers. So I think that's the key, what we're looking at here. I really think you're going to see somebody really have a really good year this year.
Well, Rob, I can take it or you can go, but he's talking about rushing, so I'll go and you hold yours. I think that either Matt Fuller or Christian Clark will top 1,000 yards rushing this season, and that goes right into what Rob said. I think this is going to be a 55 to 60% rushing attack, and I think that Lenore Sellers is still going to have the opportunity to get 30-plus pass attempts per game, and we just talked about it. 70 passing plays a game or 70 offensive plays a game. You say maybe 30 of those are passing. There's going to be some rushing stuff, and Clark and Fuller can break away. So it's been a long time since the Gamecocks had a 1,000-yard rusher. Do y'all think it happens this year? Either one of you, go ahead. Whoever talks first.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does because I think that this offense is predicated on the run game. And I think I think that there are going to be opportunities for Lenore's to throw the football. Don't get me wrong, but when you give that breakdown, I agree with those numbers that you're giving right there, Matt. Let's break that down. If he has 30 passing attempts or even 25, if he has 30 passing attempts and they run the ball 30 times and you're averaging 70 plays a game, that leaves you in a window of 10 more plays to play with. Are those scramble plays? Is that another 7 carries for Fuller and 3 carries for Clark or whoever else is in there? I think that there's going to be opportunities for sure. And you mentioned Lenore Sellers earlier. How many 40-yard runs does he have? When I look at Matt Fuller specifically, and again, the quote that I got was, I saw him walk away from a defender that I know runs a 4.3. So that was in spring practice from a coach that was there watching. He's got the home run ability. How many 50-yard runs does he break off? Does he get a couple of those? Because if you have 2 or 3 of those real quick, then this becomes a different type of math to get to 1,000.
Yeah. Kendall Browse has shown that if there's a play or 2 or 3 that's working, he tends to keep kind of going back to it. So like, if he's got a stretch play that's running, working, and you're going to see Fuller or Kirk really run the ball, you could see them get 30, 40 yards in a matter of a minute of offense, time offense, so on the clock. So I think this could easily be obtained 1,000 yards with this offense. And it really is all about how the game's flowing too. I think you're going to see, like you said, 60-40 when it comes to running the football.
So it goes right into another prediction. I'm going to throw this out very, very quickly because we got to get to everybody. So I'm not trying to dominate the time. But based on what we just said, I think Lenore Sellers earns either first, second, or third team all SEC honors at quarterback. Because if he's going to go over 3,000 and, with what Rob said, 700, and to get to Corey here in the chat, Corey Bridges, are you guys factoring in sacks? Rob did mention that 674 yards as a redshirt freshman, and that's sacks included. So if he does this, is it crazy to think that what has to happen for him not to be, I guess is the question.
No, I mean, the offensive line can't protect him. I think that's what this comes down to. If he gets into a situation where you have, 40 plus sacks again, then you're not gonna be there, Matt. I think that they have to. I think they have to get the ball out quickly, or they have to get a running lane for him, and that all comes back to me. We mentioned earlier who's going to be his safety valve, especially now that his brother is out for the year. And is it Brady Hunt? Is it Mike Tyler? Is it Mazio Bennett? Like, who is it going to be under, or is it one of these backs? Can it be one of these backs who's just going to release out of the backfield, and that's going to be the safety net? I don't know, but if he's not protected, he's not going to get loose to get the rushing yards that we're talking about, and he's not going to have time to throw the ball downfield intermediate, and it's going to be a lot of dump offs, and we're not going to see it progress to first, second, or third team All SEC.
Maybe it's a Lex Cyrus pulling an Ace Sanders and making one guy miss and going 60 yards. And when you talk about the dump offs, with Jaden Sellers and Jaden Gibson out for the year, there's a lot of talented guys that have an opportunity. So Justin, any thoughts on that one? Do you think that obviously if everything we said happens, it'll probably be, but your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, if he's in that first, second, or third selection, I mean, that means the Gamecocks are doing pretty well, right? So, obviously, I don't think he was voted on initially by the preseason, but we know what that really doesn't really mean anything. But if he gets off to a good start, I mean, he has a really opportunity this first two games to really put up some numbers. The question is, will the coaching staff leave him in, or are they going to keep running the ball to kill the clock? And, you're going to be heavy favorites these first two games. So, I mean, he really has an opportunity to play two halves of football, but can put up some really big numbers. And then you have your chance going up against another good quarterback in Mississippi State. I think if you hit those first three games pretty good, he's in really good position as the front runner to take one of those three spots. I don't care what anybody says about that.
I respect that opinion. Rob, give me I want Rob's predictions. I've been giving them all Rob's.
All right, let's go to running back here. I think Isaiah Augustov challenges to be the second running back on this team. I think he's going to really push for RB2. I was told a couple of weeks ago that he might be the fastest player on the whole roster. We saw positive things out of him last year. And although we continue to hear good things about Christian Clark, I think that this kid is going to have some opportunities, and he's going to try to make the most of them. We've heard they're going to give the ball to the hot hand. I think Matt Fuller gets the first opportunities, but if Augustov gets in there and breaks one because he is, quote unquote, potentially the fastest guy on the team, then they're going to continue to give him opportunities to do so. I think that name continues to get lost in the shuffle, and I'm making a prediction that is a mistake to forget about him.
I will add that last year I talked to numerous people that were at scrimmages and said that Augustov might be the best running back on the team. So you take that with Stan Drayton saying, I'm waiting for somebody to take the bull by the horn. So, I know I said Christian Clark and I said Matt Fuller, but don't sleep on Isaiah Augustov. I don't think people understand how much talent is actually in that running back room, and it's up to the coaches to figure out who is going to be the best person. And with the Kendall Browse offense, you might be on the field, 6, 7, 8 snaps in a row if they can make it happen. And then you just never know who's going to be the person they trust the most. And we'll see. So, Justin, do you have any worry about a name like Augustov being thrown out there? Because that's not a casual name for casual fans.
No, I don't. I mean, usually, when by committee, it's always three backs probably when it comes to playing the 95% of the snaps, and those three guys seem to be the three that's going to be kind of plug and chug, so to speak. I would not be surprised at all. We have a really good running backs coach, and Fuller has shown signs already. We know of him, and then obviously with Kirk transferring, and then him, Augustov. It's anybody's ball game, so to speak. But I would not be shocked at all if he's the guy when it comes, 3-4 games in, and he's really kind of hovering the load.
I'll go one more here, Matt, when we talk about and then I'll be done with the offense. But we mentioned obviously the wide receiver room and talked a lot about MJ Bennett early in the show. If I'm looking at this wide receiver group, I think he finishes the year in the top 4 in that room statistically, which puts him back in the conversation as a guy who can step up and lead that room going into next year. I think that Harbor is the foregone conclusion at wide receiver 1. And if we are going to predict anybody else to overtake him at this point, I think we're kind of stepping out on a limb. But that doesn't mean that the rest of these guys don't have a ton of talent. The prediction that I made last year in the preseason was Nick Harbor would lead the team in touchdowns from a receiving standpoint. Mazio Bennett would lead the team in yards. I'm going back to that again this year, especially now with Jaden Sellers out. There needs to be a possession receiver that gets it done over the middle, that has a little yards after catch ability. I think that Mazio Bennett has this knack for finding holes in a defense. He settles down in places where Lenore Sellers can find him. We saw this his freshman year. He was wide open so many times when he got the ball because he just is able to find that hole in the zone or make his guy lose his footing or shake him loose underneath. So I think that he is going to be a major factor in here. I would go Harbor, Bennett, Tuggle, Murph as my top 4 right now, but don't forget about DJ Black as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to add to the receiving kind of topic. I expect Brady Hunt to have a monster year for us. There's not been a whole lot of chatter about him, but I think he has the physique and he has the experience. I think he's going to be a reliable threat for us when it comes down to it.
I'll add again and again, if you guys just joined us, you can go to thebigspur.com. I had an article on Mazio Bennett as maybe being the X factor. And look, when I started hearing some of his scrimmage reports last night, I said something's not adding up. So I asked around, found out about Jaden's injury. But I thought it was more like Jaden pushing outside. And maybe this is a blessing in disguise because I do think Jaden can be an outside receiver. But now Mazio has a prime spot for the slot. And there's not much difference between Jaden and Mazio and what they can do. So, Rob, I think that's a really interesting prediction. I don't think it's wrong by any stretch. And, I don't know if I can explain this in any other words, Rob. You'll probably just nod your head. But Mazio is a very hungry competitor. And if there is anything that gives him an opportunity to help his team, he will do it. So I think Mazio is going to take this on, just absolutely take, one bite of the elephant until he eats the entire elephant. He's going to finish this thing. So could be a blessing in disguise for the Gamecocks. Looking at offensive stuff here, I just got a couple. I'm going to breeze through them. You don't have to give me any commentary here. I think there's going to be at least 5 pass catchers that top 250-plus yards. I think Nick Harbor has at least 4 100-yard games. And I also think prior to the bye week, the Gamecock offensive line is going to have at least 3 different sets of starters to start a game because they're going to figure it out. Ja'Carry Speak's going to be a new starter. But I'm just more thinking about Darius Gray. When does he push in? Right, Rob?
Yeah, I think it seems like a matter of time. Yeah. I had Darius Gray on SEC Sunday night the day he committed to South Carolina, and he's impressive to talk to. And I think that I got a glimpse right then of what these coaches are talking about from his not just physical standpoint, but his ability to kind of absorb and his maturity. That's a big thing for freshmen because if they come in with a body type that is ready to go, then the question is, well, can you process fast enough to play this game? Not every freshman comes in and has the physical ability to get out there and make an impact. South Carolina has several that can make an impact as true freshmen. physically. The question for me becomes what's going on right here between the ears. That's why I'm so high on Currents, and that's why I'd be so high on Darius Gray too.
Justin, anything to add there?
I don't. I mean, it's kind of who's going to gel the best, right? And who can avoid the injuries. And we need to find that 5 to 8 guys that we can depend on, and it's been lacking the last several years.
All right, let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. I agree with everything Justin just said. Rob, I know you got a handful of defensive stuff. I got a handful of defensive stuff. And I just love Justin being like the realist here, like the fan in the room that said, I don't know about this, or maybe I believe in it. So let's go to the defensive side of the ball, Rob. Your first one.
So this is the one where I'm gonna go on the freshman side of things. I think Noah Clark actually becomes the most impactful true freshman on this football team. You know, there's a lot of names that we're talking about here, and defensive tackle is one of the deepest positions, and so it's tough to overtake. However, the body type that he has, the ability to come in and hold down to be a plugger who's going to stop the run, a true like zero nose type of guy, plus the quickness and athleticism that he has. I think when all is said and done in the SEC, what do we know? You got to stop the run and run the ball. Shane Beamer would tell you the same thing. It's on the wall in the facility. Okay. So what do you need in the middle to do that? A guy with that Noah Clark body type. And there have been continuous rave reviews about him coming out of a preseason camp and over the course of the summer. When you look at him, he looks different than the rest of those guys, Matt. His body is composed differently. So I think that he has an opportunity to get in there and really impact things. And it might not be something that we see statistically, but something that makes a big impact because he's just eating so much space in the middle in the run game.
I will add on to that where I had one of my predictions is I have at least 4 defensive players making an all SEC team. And I wasn't even thinking about freshmen when I did that, Rob. So I think you're on top of it. I think Dylan Stewart, Tomey, Brownlow Dindy, Fred Johnson, Vicari Swain, Peyton Williams, and then there are others that could make their way. But I do think that Noah Clark is positioned to potentially be a freshman all SEC guy. Maybe Jazavion Currents is as well. And maybe there's others. But they're going to more and more I talk to people, I think Noah Clark has the opportunity to make an impact on maybe even special teams. Maybe block a field goal, maybe get a crucial sack in the second quarter that forces a fumble. So I don't disagree with anything you said about Noah Clark. I had a contact that I spent some time with Wednesday night just tell me, like, people are sleeping on Noah Clark. And I said, what do you mean? And he just said, well, the way people talk about him is different. It's just different. So I think you're right on there. I think it'd be hard for him to crack the 2 deep, but if he does, that just means that he's very, very good. And we'll see what happens there. I think, and this goes hand in hand, defensive tackle will be the strength of the defense. I think until Dylan Stewart gets back, defensive tackle is really going to set the tone. That helps linebackers. It helps everybody.
Yeah, I can't push back on some of these defensive predictions because there's a potential for a lot of these things to happen, Matt, Justin, right? When we talk about these players, we've seen flashes and we've seen real production out of a lot of them. And then you've also you got some kind of prove it situations. We look across the defensive front, you have, like we said, six guys deep at that position. You got your edge kind of starters, whether Dylan Stewart is in there or not. I think you're going to see Julian Walker and Caleb Herring be those other two. We know who the linebackers are. We just talked about the secondary. We're high on everybody in there, and I don't think that we're sunshine pumping. I think that there's an opportunity for them to look different. I think with the offensive scheme, this defense may be on the field a little bit more, and you may get a different result in terms of points per game. But I do think that you have a lot of guys back, right? You got a lot of guys back. And so while we're making defensive predictions, I'm not afraid for us to stick our necks out there a little bit on some of these.
Yeah, I was just going to add, what is it? Who's going to step into that on the other side of of the line on the other side of the edge to Stewart. Who's going to come in and have that Kennard-esque kind of feel, from 2 years ago? Now, Kennard was a heck of a player for us, but who's going to really step in and take those next steps? Maybe they're not getting as much attention as Stewart is. I think that's really key in this point. And I think Clayton White's does a really good job of kind of disguising linebacker play, kind of sneaking on blitzes and stuff. I think you're going to see. I really think Fred Johnson's going to be a stud when we're talking Clemson game. I think you're seeing this guy is going to be really somebody that takes off from a national standpoint.
Yeah, I had that written down too, Justin.
Yeah.
I think that he's the number one linebacker at the end of the year. That's one of the defensive predictions that I have here. Who steps out of that group? I think that maybe Justin O has the potential to be the sack artist, the one that's going to blitz the most. But I think that Fred Johnson becomes the best overall linebacker out of this group and kind of is the one that stands out at the end of the day. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a little bit of Sky Moore interception fest out of Fred Johnson specifically because of his ability to move sideline to sideline. I think that he has a chance to grab a couple this year.
I'll tell you this, Fred Johnson's the guy that since he was in high school, the coaches have raved about. And it goes back to what I said about linebacker earlier. It's a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5, like 1 being the least, 5 being the most worrisome. I just need to see those guys do what I've been told they can do. I need to see them have the reps and react. So I think all of that is very, 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 very good analysis. The thing that goes right hand in hand is if the linebackers can do everything we've talked about and the defensive tackles can do everything we've talked about, and you have a guy on the other end like Kyle Kennard that can, set the edge, I think the Gamecocks can get down to holding opposing rushing attacks to 130 yards per game. If you take out the Ole Miss and the Missouri game last year, they held opponents to 125 yards rushing per game. If the Gamecocks can do that, that makes life easier for everybody. So we kind of talked about it, but thoughts on that? Is that a crazy number to anybody else?
I don't think it's a crazy number. I think it's a goal number. You know what I mean? And here's my question going into this year is how good does this defense need to be? And maybe that's years of watching the Gamecocks baked into me of just going like, well, can they just be good enough? Because there have been years in the Shane Beamer era, if we go back a little bit, where I had confidence that the offense was going to be able to put points on the board. And there was a point in time before Clayton White really got this thing humming where I was like, if he gets this defense to a top 50 defense nationally in points per game, South Carolina is going to be in a whole lot of games that we didn't see them in early on, especially the transition time from Muschamp to Beamer. They're past that, okay? Now we have questions about the offense in the past couple of years, seemingly like that's going to move a little more smoothly this year. If we're looking at points per game, obviously that's what matters at the end of the day. And if you win the game or not, right? Do you score more points than the opponent? I'm looking at how many points is the offense going to score on average? How many points is the defense going to give up on average? And that tells me just how good we feel like the defense needs to be, Matt. And when you give out a number like 130 rushing yards, well, what is the offense producing? Is the offense producing 130 rushing yards? Are they producing 150 rushing yards? Because if that's the case, and if the offense rushes for 150 and the defense holds opponents to 150, I'll take the Gamecocks 10-2.
Yeah, I think what I'm looking at from a defensive perspective is not really a numbers thing. I think those are, like you said, good goals to kind of shoot for. But the question is, can the defense get off the field when you need it to, right? You're in a close scoring game, and I know that's a big subject matter, but if the Gamecocks get down in a bunch of games, or let's say 3-4 games, that they're predicted to lose by the experts, there's going to be a time and place where it's going to be late in the third or in the fourth quarter where they've got to get off the field. And can they do that? And I think it's really, for me, what describes a successful defense.
So, Justin, I'd push back just a little bit there. And I think one of the biggest issues South Carolina has had is the defense has had to produce in those moments. The offense hasn't done enough. And I think that goes back to what Rob was not trying to say. He said it very eloquently. What I'm trying to say right now is that the Gamecock football team needs to score about 31, 32 points per game. I don't care how they do it. But if you're scoring 31, 32 points a game, 26 plus points per game, then it's not oh my gosh, we're down 24-16. We have to just stop even a field goal here for the defense because there's only 6 minutes left. How many more possessions? So, but yeah, I mean, the reason I said 130 was just because that kind of establishes what the game is going to look like. And if you can control possession, no one's just, eating away minutes of possession a game. But yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to me, especially Justin, I love your betting take because you're immediately saying like, well, at the end of the game, like they can't give it up. And it's like, yeah, they can't give it up.
Well, my only concern is if a team, that team that goes on a 7-minute drive, like can we get off the field, right? That's what
That's the big thing, getting off the field.
That's what I mean by that. Like, can we get off the field? Not from a perspective. I think we will be able to score, but I worry about sometimes about when you get in those scenarios when you're kind of gassed, so to speak. And maybe that's not the case with the offense this year.
Speaking of being gassed, can I give one more here really quick?
You don't have gas, do you?
It's no. But I thought it triggered this thought because I have this one written down from a scheduling standpoint. I've been asked multiple times, what's the most important game for South Carolina this year? What's pivotal for them? I mentioned it earlier tonight. Tennessee. Okay, I think it's a big game, and they are going to go fast. You're going to have opportunities for this defense to get gassed. But my prediction is when we reach that game on October 24th, Gamecocks Volunteers will have a combined 2 losses. This will be a big national matchup.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm going to go one game prior, and that's the Florida game. I think that's really the tone setter. I think the Florida game is crucial here. I mean, you have a chance, a new coach and a new team. I know we're probably going down a different discussion topic, but I really think the Florida game is critical here.
Well, that makes it really tough for me because my final prediction of the night was that the Gamecocks drop at least one game versus Florida, Tennessee, or Alabama. And I don't like the fact that Rob mentioned Tennessee, Justin mentioned Florida as a must-win game, and then Alabama comes before both of those games.
I actually think it's Florida out of those 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. All right. So it's just a gut thing. I think that they have a chance to pick up some momentum. They have confidence against Alabama. Alabama's going to have some questions along the line of scrimmage. Could that be advantage Gamecocks? Maybe so. You look at the rest of South Carolina's schedule leading up to that point. Florida's sneaky, man. They're sneaky. I don't like them overall this year, but you're going to the swamp. Where does that game fall? How up are they at that point? I think it has just one of those. It just has some stink on it that I don't like. They come back home and maybe handle business against Tennessee. When I said a combined 2 losses, I was saying that South Carolina maybe beats Alabama and loses to Florida the week before. And then Tennessee's got to drop one somewhere. And maybe they have Bama before South Carolina as well.
Rob, any thoughts on that?
Justin, any thoughts on that?
Sorry, Justin.
I mean, combined 2 losses, I'll sign up for that. Where do I sign? Can I sign right now? I mean,
yeah, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, next week, y'all, we gotta get out of here. I've kept Justin, I've kept Rob way too long. I thank you guys for being good sports and doing this episode with me. But next week, Rob, I know you're excited. We're actually going to give our Gamecock football predictions for the season. There will be another scrimmage that we'll have to talk about at some point. We'll get to it when it happens. But next Sunday night, Rob, we got to put our reputation on the line. Poor Justin had to do it over the last 6 weeks. But we've taken all the information Justin has given us. We've, talked about it to death. And next week we will give our actual predictions. Justin, the good thing is that next week you will be on the show to tell us what we got right, what we got wrong. And look, I know everyone's not able to watch every single episode, but next week, if you missed anything Justin gave prior, you don't have time, like Justin will be here to talk about it. So you can kind of catch up. We appreciate everybody for being here with us tonight. I know we went a bit long, but this is a lot of fun now. Rob doesn't have SEC Sunday night, so he's kind of a hostage now, which is really fun. But Guys, we'll be right back here next Sunday. Thank you all for being with us. Thank you for giving us your time. It's the most valuable thing you have. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. And we'll be back next Sunday night, and we can't wait to see you. Thanks, everybody.